6:04, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, Mornings with Brian Haldane, off and running. Brian here with you, JP producing, coming to you live from the 180 Pros studio. We're starting you off at 43 degrees in downtown Baton Rouge. Happy Halloween, everybody. Although, for some, Halloween started off a lot scarier than for others. We are going to get you through everything that's going on. Man, that news escalated yesterday. Scott Woodward out at LSU. We're going to talk about that in just a second in our top stories. And just as a programming note, a heads up, LSU has a press conference scheduled for 8 a.m. We will be carrying it live right here on Talk 107.3. So we're with you through the morning. I'll give you the full rundown in just a little bit, but let's start off with top stories and trending.
Number 5.
Well, that is the big news of the morning, so we'll go ahead and start there. Scott Woodward is out. LSU's athletic director resigning. Verge Osbury will step in as interim AD. LSU, like I said, will be holding a press conference at 8 this morning. We will carry it live.
Number 4.
And speaking of LSU, when will they have a new president? Well, in speaking with Matt Moscona yesterday on After Further Review, Governor Landry actually let it out that we should hear something on Tuesday. We will have audio of that coming up in just a little bit.
Number 3.
A grand jury indicted the former head of the region's groundwater commission and Assistant Superintendent Breck and another man on allegations that they conspired to bypass state purchasing laws. Gary Beard and Oscar Reed Richard were accused of 1 count each of malfeasance in office, monopolizing trade or commerce, and conspiracy. Jason Hewitt's accused of 2 counts of conspiracy, 2 counts of monopolizing trade, and 2 counts of being a principal to malfeasance in office.
Number 2.
41-year-old Gad Black, who was arrested for hitting BRPD Sergeant Caleb Eisworth with his truck back in June, was indicted for first-degree murder yesterday. Black allegedly intentionally drove his truck into the sergeant's motorcycle. Black was arrested later that day at a nearby sporting goods store, booked for attempted first-degree murder. Of course, that escalated when Sergeant Eisworth passed. And according to arrest documents, he had a, quote, deep-rooted hatred for law enforcement personnel.
Number 1.
All right, we're looking like we're finally in the clear as far as everything involving Hurricane Melissa is concerned. Now, Melissa still maintaining hurricane status in the Atlantic Ocean, parallel with North Carolina right now, on her way towards the northeast. Maximum sustained winds are down to 90 miles an hour. And here's the good news. As tomorrow begins the last month of hurricane season, there is no other activity working at this time.
All right, well, it's day 31 of the federal government shutdown. Tomorrow we roll into a new month, and along with it, a new strain of personal budgets as SNAP benefits run out in states that haven't committed to filling the federal gap.
So we have $150 million to prop things up for 1 month in the state of Louisiana. But we're going to talk with Stephen Portnoy from ABC News coming up at 6:35, 6:40, about exactly this, like state to statewide. What are we looking at? But more importantly, as far as the federal shutdown is concerned, is there any glimmer of hope anywhere along the way? Is anybody talking? We'll talk with Portnoy in about half an hour.
Yeah, it sounds good. He'll be able to bring some clarification to that. In other news, Prince Andrew is no longer a prince. King Charles has removed his title and all connection to the royal family due to Andrew's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Ooh,
yeah,
man.
I know. No longer a royal. I wonder what that's like.
Now just Andrew Windsor.
Oh, is he's given that last name?
Yeah,
Windsor.
All
right. I didn't know if they stripped that too. Like, did they take,
the family name too?
Yeah.
Ooh, man.
Right.
Oof. He's in it deep.
By the way, it's okay. I don't want to make it sound like I'm having sympathy for anybody who's connected to Jeffrey Epstein, but it is a little bit unfair that we're getting this piecemeal to where, like, you can hate certain people, but, like, there's other people that are probably involved that we just don't know about yet.
For sure.
So does your hate diminish a little bit each time a new name comes out?
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Because if everyone's name came out, then it'd be.
If everybody came out at once, we'd know it.
Yeah.
We would know it and, let the chips fall where they may. But, like, it's natural to have some kind of, what's the term I'm looking for here? It's like degrading of like, the first time you hear a joke, it's funny.
Right.
The second time you hear a joke, it's less funny. Mm-hmm. You hear it 4 or 5 times, and eventually you just ignore it.
Yeah.
Okay, the first time you hear an Epstein name, you're outraged. The second time, slightly less maybe.
Yeah.
And then once you get, a few dozen times in, it's like, oh, yeah, him too. Okay.
Right. It lessens
That's
the
what I
blow
want to
every
avoid,
time. Yep.
you know?
In other news, Gayle King, who has been the face of CBS News morning show for more than a decade, is expected to depart as an anchor of the morning program next year.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize she was still the anchor. I thought Nora O'Donnell was. But all right, here's a question for our Facebook Live audience. And by the way, we are live on Facebook every morning, courtesy of the folks at Lake Urgent Care. Here's our question for our Facebook Live audience: do anchors still matter? I mean, so my wife and I are watching the morning show is that on Apple TV? I think it is.
Okay. Yeah.
We're watching the morning show with Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon and Steve Carell, and it kind of like dovetails with the whole Me Too movement and kind of loosely compares Steve Carell to Matt Lauer, right?
Okay.
But are we in a place now where the Katie Courics and Matt Lauers of the world, like, do they matter anymore? Like
The gatekeeper, so to speak.
well,
Not necessarily, but
the presenter, as it were. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm curious if like you hear Gayle King retiring, or not retiring, but moving to a different post after a full decade, is like, is this going to register on anyone's radar? It was trending last night. I saw, like,
yeah, for sure.
I mean, I'm sifting, I'm looking for anything not LSU related,
No,
of course, stumbled across that. That piqued my interest a little bit. So sound off over on Facebook Live. You will find us on Talk 107.3's Facebook Live. Love to chat with you about that, about everything going on at LSU. And, but it's Halloween, and we're like probably not going to talk about Halloween very much this morning. It's a weird space, but that's where we are. Rundown, guest-wise, Stephen Portnoy at 6:40. State Speaker of the House, Phillip DeVillier, 7:15. We're going to go back and put another button on the recent special legislative session, but also talk about a few bigger picture items as well. Phillip DeVillier, 7:15. 7:35, the folks from the Pennington Biomedical Research Center. Dr. Tim Allerton is going to be talking Obesity Week. Great to end that with Halloween night and a whole bunch of candy. In the 8 o'clock hour, like we said, we're going to carry that LSU press conference at 8. And then everything else within the 8 o'clock hour is kind of pending right now. I'm about 90% sure we got the Chicken Shack in for Foodie Friday. So buckle up. We're ready to roll here. And we're going to take a quick break when we come back. Tyler Shuck's getting his first start this weekend. We'll talk about that, recap a little bit of LSU women's basketball from last night. It's on the way next on Talk 107.3. This is one of those mornings where the amount of information I'm sitting on is greater than the amount of information I can share. And it's going to be tough not to self-sabotage today. LSU off this weekend. Saints are out west taking on the Rams. We'll get to them in just a little bit. Want to start last night with the last of the exhibition games for LSU women's basketball. Took on Langston last night, and it was brutal, y'all. 141-21, your final score. A couple of highlights along the way. Hard to pick through the highlights for this one simply because there were like 141 points. 121 points. That just like, how do you sift through and determine what was and was not, obviously not everything's a highlight, but my goodness, when you've got so many stealing scores, so many runouts, so many great assists along the way to create buckets. I tell you what, let's go ahead and start with, in the second quarter. I can't remember if it was, Flaugier or no, it was Michaela Williams. Michaela Williams hitting, stealing the basketball, getting up to full Wally on the run out.
Langston ball, and Williams is going to get a steal underneath. She's got 3 on 2. She's to the bucket behind her back.
Hey!
Full Wiley laid it in.
Let's go.
Williams behind her back to full Wiley, and the layup was good. 29-11 LSU. So Michaela got the steal and the assist.
Keeping it in the second quarter right there, not too much longer after that, you saw Johnson to Johnson, Flaugier to Zakaya, as this time the lead stretched out to 40-15.
Hunter has it knocked away. Johnson's got it. Johnson to Akaya Johnson. Leans and lays it in. It counts, and a foul.
Go. When I say fast, we're looking at fast.
Flaugier to Akaya. So Flaugier, again, I got to distinguish as we got 2 of them, but Flaugier got the steal. And
Zakaya Johnson just knows how to get down the court and finish.
So one of the things we're going to have to learn, because this girl's good, is it Akaya Johnson or Zakaya Johnson? Her name does start with a C. A Z, I'm sorry. So are we pronouncing that? You heard it right there. Patrick Wright on the call for the LSU Sports Radio Network, not pronouncing the Z, and then Shaida Williams with pronouncing the Z. So as it stood last night, I mean, just the fullest of full box scores, to be sure. You had, let's see here. Okay, total points wise, you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different Tigers in double figures. They were led by Amaya Joyner, who did a lot of her damage in the second half. Outside of that, Kate Koval had 12, Flaugier had 10. Flaugier only played like 15 minutes the whole night. You had Malaysia Fulwiley with 11, Amaya Joyner with 24, Jada Richard with 10, and Bella Hines with 14. Bella Hines had 2 3-pointers along the way as well. 121-41, your final score there. LSU women's basketball will open their regular season Tuesday, 7 p.m. against Houston Christian right here on Talk 107.3 FM. Meanwhile, the Saints are going to be out west. I tell you what, let's hold off on the soundbite for this until we get back because head coach Kellen Moore talked at length about starting Tyler Shuck instead of Spencer Rattler this week. We'll have that for you right after we check in with the Fox Business Report. In fact, since we have a quick second before that, let me remind you that Ken Trahan's original prep football report is right here on Talk 107.3 FM. Yes, it's Halloween, but yes, the high school football rolls on. 6 to 11 p.m., presented locally by Dr. Pepper and the Harold Perkins Jr. tuition program. You will hear Ken Trahan's original prep football report right here on Talk 107.3. And also, before we get you to, looking at the clock right now, not going to try and squeeze it in. We're going to stay on time. Fox Business Report's coming your way. I will have a check of traffic. We'll wrap up sports and pivot over to Jeff Landry next. And good morning, Christy. Super quiet start to your Friday morning on both the interstates and the surface streets. In fact, let's start on the surface streets. There are no accidents to report. Interstates, really no congestion. You're looking at minimal drives coming in from Livingston Parish or Ascension Parish. 12 to 15 minutes to get from Denham to the split, or to the merge, I should say. Nothing going on 10 eastbound coming over from West Baton Rouge either, and I-110 is wide open as well. So as we do start on a Friday pretty smoothly, or very smoothly, let's hopefully keep it there. That's your look at traffic from the Talk 1073 Traffic Center. .623 Talk 1073 FM WBRP. Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. Sports rolled over into the segment, so let's keep it. Well, it's kind of all sports this morning, though, when you think about it, because we'll be talking about the firing of Brian Kelly, which was last Sunday, or this past Sunday, and then now Scott Woodward is out at LSU. What does that mean? Where do we go? So we're gonna have some audio. Governor Jeff Landry was on with Matt Moscona on AFR yesterday. We'll get to that in a minute. Wrapping up sports, though. Southern's on the road this weekend. They're at Arkansas Pine Bluff, 2 p.m. kickoff there. The Jaguars remaining at 1-7 overall. Arkansas Pine Bluff's actually a decent spot if they want to try and find a win. Pine Bluff is 2-5 overall, 1-3 in conference play. Meanwhile, Saints making a move at quarterback. Tyler Shuck's the man. Spencer Rattler's out. Here's Kellen Moore.
Obviously, yesterday, talked to both quarterbacks, talked through the sequence here. We're going to start Tyler. Really excited about this opportunity for him. He's been preparing each and every week, just as he would be if he was the starter. And so I feel like he's ready to go. It'll be a lot of exciting opportunities for him. Obviously, it'll be his first experience starting and going through that full process. And obviously, there's an element with that you got to kind of navigate as you go. But we're really excited about that. Spencer's done some really good things. And I think if anything, Spencer's proven that he can win games in this league. He can play at a really high level. He's done a lot of good things. And so, this will be an exciting time for Tyler, but Spencer's will always be ready, and he'll continue to grow as well. These are two young quarterbacks that we feel really good about. Just felt like, there was an opportunity where Tyler, I felt like, was ready. Felt like, at the end of the day, one of the more important aspects of this from a wider lens perspective is offensively, we got to find a little bit more success, a little bit more consistency. I think that doesn't have only to do with Spencer. That has to do with everyone associated with the offense. And so we're continuing to build that and grow each and every week. And, I think Tyler's ready to go. He's prepared really, really well through this whole process. Patience sometimes is you got to play that game a little bit, and he's ready to go. No, Tyler's starting, so we're not looking back on that. Obviously, the goal is to let Tyler play and get going, and Spencer knows that his role is to be the backup, and he's there to help Tyler in any possible way. He did an excellent job today, running the scout team, preparing just like he would be just a starter like any other week, and so I feel like that room. The good thing we got going is that room is a bunch of A+ people, and they handle it awesome.
That's a minute 36 to say Tyler Shuck is starting. I mean, JP, I looked up I thought Adobe was on a loop. I was like, did you, the little loop button right next to the play? I was like, did you leave the loop on? No. That was okay. Kickoff 3 p.m. Sunday on our sister station, Eagle 98.1. Saints are at the Rams this week. All right, back to what is the top story of the week. And that top story has pivoted and evolved and advanced, and we are now without an athletic director at LSU. Verge Osbury stepping in as the interim athletic director as Scott Woodward is out. All this feels so dated now because everything that happened yesterday is like literally yesterday's news because Scott Woodward is the new news. But a lot had transpired between Sunday and yesterday. And, oh, by the way, tentatively, Jeff Landry is supposed to join us Monday, 8:05, and we're going to keep him for as long as we possibly can because I believe there are multiple conversations and multiple things are true all at the same time. So I've got a number of questions for the governor already, and we're going to dive into more when he comes on Monday. But as of right now, tentatively scheduled for 8:05. The governor's mornings can get busy, so we'll be able to keep him right there. Okay, that being said, his afternoons, he was freed up around 4 o'clock yesterday and visited with Matt Moscona on after further review. Want to start with this here, and we'll pick it up a little bit later on with talking about the shutdown in the middle. So let's start with this. How did the governor get involved in talking about firing LSU's head football coach. How does this even end up on his radar? I mean, why is this not like pay grades, plural, below the governor? What happened with the meeting at the governor's mansion over the last weekend? Jeff Landry explains all of those things. Cut one.
Let's start off with the rumor about this meeting at the governor's mansion and that I was involved in whether somebody was being fired or not fired. There was a meeting. That meeting was simply to go over the legalese of the contract. I needed to understand who ultimately was going to pay for the $53 million if that's what is ended up being paid. Like, who's responsible for it? And so after 3 hours and pouring through the contract and looking at everything, it is very simple. Ultimately, the state of Louisiana and the Louisiana taxpayers would be ultimately responsible for paying that amount. Now, look, if somebody decided, hey, you know what, I'm going to relieve the state of Louisiana of that obligation, and they want to stroke a $53 million contract, a $53 million check, then that would take the state of Louisiana off of the hook. But make no mistake about it, the contract, anybody that says otherwise needs to read the contract. In fact, we just posted that out. The Louisiana State University is a subdivision of the state. And ultimately, the taxpayers are responsible under that contract.
Having not read the contract and not privy to the contract without some kind of freedom of information request, I tend to take him at his word. But there's another side to this as well, in that if that's the norm with the contracts, surely we would have seen where the state had paid coaches in the past that had to be bought out. Has there ever been an incidence of that? Matt, that was Matt's follow-up question.
I don't know. You mean in the country or in the state of Louisiana?
I couldn't find one in the country today, but I was just using Google and AI. But if you know of any, I'd be curious.
No, I don't know, Matt. But here's the most important thing. I have to live in Realville. I have to know who ultimately has to pay the bill if no one does step up. No one came to the mansion and said, hey, I got a $53 million check. Don't worry, Governor, we got this. Let's make that very clear. But what has happened in the past, and certainly we haven't had a price tag this big, but in the past, it had been TAP or somebody else that had come up there and said, hey, we want to make a change in coaching, and we're willing to help offset whatever these costs are. Nobody stepped up.
We're going to have to pause on this. We'll hit news, we'll hit traffic, we'll hit weather. Stephen Portnoy from ABC News will join us next, but we're picking this conversation back up at 6:50. I don't think they fired him. Come to me before going to traffic. Oh my God, thank you, Galen. Desensitized. That's the word. Oh, it's in there already? Then don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I'll have plenty of time before we get to Stephen Portnoy, so. Oh, shut all the fucking way up. I'm just gonna be a curmudgeon this morning with like so much going on. I think I have no room for bullshit. Like, colossal dick to me, and Palermo introduced us, and I'm like. And that was like 2 months ago. Oh, yeah. Oh, no. But like, boy, Galen's on fire this morning. All right, here we go. You ready? Debbie says anchors are the face of the program. Just depends on who you like to watch. Love that. That's a great take. That's exactly what I was looking for, right? But Galen follows it up with really one that's going to make me think all morning long. But at a time long ago, there was one anchor, and it was for the evening news. Now there's a ton of shows with a ton of anchors, so less the singular face. I think their importance has been diminished. It's true. When you had to wait all day long to get to the evening news, to get to Dan Rather, to get to Peter Jennings, to get to, or Walter Cronkite if you're older, like if you had to wait all day long for the news, then it meant a lot more. In today's world of a 24-hour news cycle, my iPhone is the anchor. So what? Oh, yeah. Yeah, they didn't sit on the news. They weren't the keepers of the information, right?
It's like, then it's like, if you have a take, it's like, well,
I can sound off, and
you can sound off.
My uninformed opinion is worth every bit as much as those who do the shit for a living.
Right.
Well, I do,
and that's what I mean. Like now we're in an age where it's like we can start our podcast. We can, and we look to those people that aren't necessarily the face anymore.
.636 Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. Let me take a quick moment to remind you about the folks over at 180 Pros. They sponsor the studio, they sponsor the show, and we absolutely love this partnership. In fact, when you talk about partnerships, that's exactly what they do differently. They're not your IT provider, they're your IT partner. When it comes to cybersecurity and what your company needs specifically, they're your partner. When it comes to making sure your system is always up and running, they are your partner. When it comes to getting that invoice at the end of the month, the simplified billing, they are your partner. Check them out online at 180pros.com, 180pros.com, or you can give them a call. They're right here in 225. Yeah, local. Kind of something else you need for a partner. 225-330-2200 for 180 Pros. We get Stephen Portnoy from ABC News going to hop on the hotline in just a quick second here. To talk about the government shutdown, day 31. Tomorrow means SNAP benefits are cutting off in a lot of places. It doesn't mean like you're going to see this overwhelming, like people are just going to start starving in the streets tomorrow. That's not the case. But is that going to be the impetus to get people talking? if for no other purpose than is that the impetus to get Republicans in the Senate to go with the nuclear option? Can they end the filibuster? The filibuster is a part of this that not a whole lot of people are talking about. So we're going to talk with Stephen Portnoy here in just a minute. I do want to be very, very careful about the verbiage this morning. LSU is going to have a press conference at 8 o'clock, and we are going to carry that come hell or high water. If there's a way for us to get the feed, we're getting the feed. If not, I'm just going to, drive over there with my cell phone and hold it up in the air. One way, shape, or form, we're carrying this bad boy, okay? But I want to be very careful about the verbiage up until then, because you heard in our news at the bottom of the hour just now, they used the term fired. Is fired, resigned, forced out. I don't know what the proper verbiage is right now. I'm going to wait till LSU handles that on their own. The report from Yahoo Sports last night was LSU and AD Scott Woodward are finalizing an exit agreement. So I want to be very careful about the way we talk about this, because I don't want to accuse one party or the other of being the guilty party here. We know how the story has evolved over the week. We know that the AD was had his legs kicked out from under him when it comes to hiring the next football coach. So the follow-up question there is, well, if you can't hire the football coach, what is your use as an AD? Now, from there, what are the inner workings? That's what I want to be responsible about, and wait for LSU to speak up at 8 o'clock with their press conference. Meanwhile, Verge Osbury going to fill in as the interim AD. And we are going to talk about this in our next segment as well, as Governor Jeff Landry was on after further review yesterday with Matt Moscona talking about it. We had a couple of sound bites in our last segment, one of them revolving around who picks up the bag, who picks up the tab for that $53 million buyout. And the governor saying if you actually read the verbiage of the contract, the taxpayer's on the hook here. Louisiana's on the hook because LSU is a public university and a public entity. LSU is like a sub entity of the state. So if the taxpayers are subject to paying the tab on this, that is an important matter that the governor needs to address. But Moscona's follow-up question was, yeah, but has that ever happened? Because the natural course of conversation or the natural course of thought process is going to be, okay, if that's the way it is, why would they fire somebody without having the money lined up first? That's where we're going to pick up the conversation in our next segment. Right now, though, Stephen Portnoy from ABC News is on with us. How are you, sir?
Hey, good morning to you. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween to you as well. We were talking about that during the break. Between the governmental shutdown, the Asia trip for the president, and all the possibilities are on the back end of that. And then I don't know if you're keeping up with what's going on here in Baton Rouge, but our flagship university does not have a president, does not have a head football coach, and as of last night, does not have an athletic director. So I think we're all looking at stealing our kids' Twix bars tonight.
Oh, boy. But I got to tell you, there's a front page story, if you can find a copy of the New York Times. Front page story today about how milk chocolate is no longer chocolate anymore, or something like that. Like they've changed the formulation because cocoa is too expensive now as it's being grown in West Africa. There are problems there, and tariffs, and so the chocolate doesn't taste the same.
Interesting. I'm trying to think of the last time I had chocolate. That's it. Okay. Now I'm definitely taxing the kids.
Right.
Sure. All right. Just so I can find out. Let's talk a little bit about the shutdown. We're on day 31 right now. Stephen, you and I talked about this in its first week, and you were of the opinion that this was going to be elongated, but you didn't say how long. Now that we're at 31 days, are you surprised it's gone on this long?
To an extent, yes, but I think one of the reasons why I'm no longer in the business of making predictions is we don't know what's going to happen. We really don't, and everything we thought we knew about the conventional way that Washington works is no longer operative. So you got to look at the incentive structure, right? Republicans say the Democrats have no incentive to end this. Earlier this week, House Speaker Mike Johnson described Democratic leaders as irredeemable because he sees Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, two New York City Democrats, as beholden to what he describes as the Marxist electorate of New York City that is prepared to, it seems, elect Zoran Mandani as the next mayor of New York City on Tuesday. If you look at the polls, that's what they would indicate.
Right.
So, are the Democrats ready to essentially fold and approve of a short-term stopgap that would end the shutdown, but only for 3 more weeks. Because remember that what was on the table for a month expires on November 21st.
Correct.
So look, I think there's finger pointing that continues, recrimination, as the shutdown begins to have an impact on people who don't work for the federal government. You've had hundreds of thousands of people who work for the federal government who have been furloughed, and hundreds of thousands of more who've been on the job, in many respects not getting paid. And now you have the SNAP benefits, those EBT cards that would normally be replenished tomorrow, that won't be. Tens of millions of people on food assistance who are going to have to worry about how they're going to feed their families. And, no one knows what to do about it. Right. Republicans say, hey, Democrats, just come on board. Democrats say, no, because Republicans aren't paying attention to what they're focused on, which is the 20 million more Americans who will be logging on to healthcare.gov and seeing their premiums in the insurance exchanges going up by double digits. And Democrats insist that Republicans do something about that now. And Republicans say, well, we will when the shutdown ends. Finger pointing continues.
We got Stephen Portnoy with us for just a couple more minutes here, and I always appreciate your time. I know it's a busy time every morning. Stephen, want to talk about the here in Louisiana, our Louisiana Department of Health is able to set aside $150 million to make sure that the SNAP benefits carry through within the month of November. Is there a trend of that nationwide that you're hearing about, or are we kind of an outlier?
Well, I had not heard that about Louisiana, so thank you for that. I can tell you that in Virginia and in Washington, D.C., officials are making similar moves. So that takes a little bit of the pressure off. But how long will it last? And how long will the shutdown last? Those are questions that are hanging over all this.
Well, TSA workers, air traffic controllers, eventually airports are going to completely shut down because people can't keep going to work for free.
That's the fact.
Right.
And it's it's certainly what everyone expects and fears. And we saw it in the shutdown of 2018 into 2019. As it lingered over the holiday period. There's been some conversation here in Washington, D.C. about sort of what they're calling rifle shot bills that would address specific concerns, such as SNAP or air traffic controllers or TSA workers. And the Senate Republican leader, John Thune, says no, he's not interested in doing that. There's been this offer on the table to fund all of the federal government, and it's essentially what Democrats should come to accept, but they have not. And the pain persists. We should note that the Constitution requires that members of Congress continue getting paid, even as the House has been out for more than a month. And look, I hate to say it, I sound like a broken record or whatever modern analogy you want to make about someone who's on repeat. But the fact is that the story isn't changing. And as the pain continues to creep, more and more Americans are going to feel it.
Looping like a TikTok, I think, is what we would say. As opposed to the scratch on the record. And I actually still know what a scratch on a record was. So before we let you go here, just as we look forward to next week, looking beyond that, holidays are just around the corner here. I can't imagine, there's not like you said, you're out of the prediction business, but there's got to be a scenario where people come together and even if it's looking in the mirror to say maybe our own party is to blame, there's got to be a coming together.
Well, the pressure's been on moderate Democrats to do what 3 of them have so far done, which is vote on this CR. But remember, that CR expires in 3 weeks anyway. So, let's just assume that they reopened the government. Somehow 5 Democrats agreed and said, you know what, those Republicans have been right all along. Let's vote to reopen the government. Then what? I expect, here's the one prediction I'll make. Okay. If the shutdown's going to end, it's going to have to go past November 21st. There has to be some kind of broader agreement on funding. But you need all the key players to be on board with that. And I don't know that we have that at this stage. The incentives remain for now on the Democratic side to continue pointing to the increased health insurance costs. And on the Republican side, it's you take it or leave it. Our offer's on the table. But that offer expires in 3 weeks. Right. So they're going to have to offer something else at a certain point if this continues. I don't know where this is going to go. But as I say, the pain continues to persist, and both sides continue pointing fingers. And I wish I had something more to add.
No, and that's exactly why we have you on, because that is everything. That is all of it. He is Stephen Portnoy with ABC News. Thank you so much for a couple minutes.
You bet.
Always. We'll talk soon. or hopefully about something else. Quick break. Coming back next. Go ahead and hit your money now, if we can. It'll be late, but I don't care. Troy says, so telling that the New York Times front page story is about chocolate, not Trump's trade talks with China. Good point. Galen, I made this point earlier in the week. I don't remember if it was on air or not. 40 million people rely on the government to eat. Let that sink in. It's emblematic of a larger problem. And I would much rather the government work on how to keep people fed without having to pick up the tab for it. By the way, we keep talking about SNAP benefits as if that's the only way to get people fed. I need to get somebody on who's an expert on WIC. Just go ahead and join Your Money Now in progress. I'm forwarding you the email from LSU. At the bottom of this email, there's a link to a YouTube, I believe. Well, I thought there was. Cade forwarded it to you. Okay. Yep. So, and that's the third option. The first option is we get it off the switcher back there. So at about 7:45 or so, 7:50, I want to start messing with the switcher and listening to it in queue. They should have music playing in the background, the LSU music or whatever. All right, if we don't have that, that's the one we're gonna need. All right, that's gonna be real time. The YouTube's gonna have a delay. I want to get it in real time. Yep. 652, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. Busy morning this morning as we're on day 31 of the federal government shutdown. This is when a lot of things are going to turn a corner as far as need is concerned. I appreciate Stephen Portnoy for his time. Wanted to do all the Jeff Landry stuff in one fell swoop, but Stephen's availability was only in that segment, so we kind of had to split it up because our big story locally that we're covering is all the turnover, all the turmoil out at LSU. Head coach Brian Kelly fired last Sunday. The university already didn't have a president. Matt Lee has been filling as interim president. We learned earlier this week that even as interim president, he's out and he's not one of the 3 finalists to be the next president. And then as of last night, Scott Woodward is out as well. Scott Woodward as the athletic director in LSU parting ways. That's all going to fold into the conversation. And everything from yesterday before the Scott Woodward news happened feels like it's old at this point, but it's still worth revisiting because it's part of the overall story. A lot of this had to do with a lot of what Scott Woodward leaving had to do with was getting his legs pulled out from under him. Governor Jeff Landry said last week, and he's doubled down on this numerous times, he does not want Scott Woodward or didn't want the AD picking the next coach. He did not like the contract that Scott Woodward had with Brian Kelly, and reiterated that with Matt Moscona on After Further Review yesterday. Matt asked him, if not the AD, who should pick the next coach? Cut 3, please.
That's a question that you'd have to ask the Board of Supervisors. In fact, in the press conference, if you listen to it in its entirety, that's exactly what I said. I said, listen, LSU is governed by a Board of Supervisors. There's an athletic committee, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Like, I've got a lot of things to do. We've got a number of boards that govern universities around. I deal with all of them on a pretty regular basis, unfortunately. But I don't micromanage the thing. There's an athletic committee. They'll pick a search committee, and they'll move forward.
Would you serve on that committee?
Absolutely not.
This is where I start to have the governor's back a little bit in all this, and I know there's a lot of moving parts, and nobody's 100% right the whole way through. But if you combine that with the breaking down of the contract and being upset with the fact that if nobody else, and it's never happened before, but if nobody else picks up the tab, taxpayers would be on the hook for the buyout. When you combine those two things, Jeff Landry has a legitimate point here. And I know that's not going to be a popular opinion this morning, and that's fine. But it is worth looking at the whole of the argument here, right? He's got a legitimate point here. If taxpayers are involved with paying the most well-paid public figure in the state, paying him to not work, then the governor has reason to be involved in this. When you look at this from a distance, when all the national media outlets dial in on this and make fun of us, and I get why they make fun of us, blah, 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 it's very easy to say, why is the governor involved in with a football coach? I understand that. But once you get into the minutia, different layers of this onion start to reveal themselves. And there's room for people to be both right and wrong on different pieces of it. It's not a big one, this is not a one-issue issue. So when the governor says it, the last 2 words of that soundbite say it all. Would you be involved with the committee if you were asked? The governor, absolutely not. Picking football coaches isn't his thing. And I know last week's the last press conference he did, he made comments about letting Donald Trump pick the next one. I think the governor was being a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Looking for a little levity there in a very serious press conference. Looking for levity in the midst of something that got very heavy very fast when it wasn't supposed to be about that in the first place. And that is another point that's worth revisiting here, is the fact that all this started at a press conference about SNAP benefits, for crying out loud. We'll talk about those there, but for the grace of God moments, right? If the federal government wasn't shut down, the state wouldn't have to step in on SNAP benefits. If the state wasn't stepping in on SNAP benefits, that press conference isn't being held. And at the press conference isn't being held, he's not asked about the LSU football coach. And, oh, by the way, if LSU could take care of business last Saturday against, going into halftime with a lead and not just completely dissolve in the second half, none of this is happening either. But we are where we are. So let's get back to it. As far as Scott Woodward being out, Matt Moscona asked Jeff Landry yesterday if the governor has the power to fire the athletic director.
Does the governor, I guess the way to ask it, does the governor have the authority to fire the athletic director at LSU?
I don't know. No, the governor does not have the authority to fire him. But I sure can call the Board of Supervisors and say, listen, I'm going to tell you, I do not think it's a good idea for us to have Scott Woodward negotiating the next contract with the coach. When you look at the way this agent system is working, under which the athletic director has the same agent as the coach. I mean, that is automatically a conflict of interest.
That's a big part of the conversation I want to have with the governor when he does come on with us, which is tentatively scheduled for Monday morning at 8:05. He's got such a strong point there in that if the athletic director and the head football coach have the same agent, there's a conflict of interest there. It's in the best interest of one to make sure that the other one's bread is buttered, right? He brings that up. But there's also that point where he says, no, I can't fire the AD, but I can call the Board of Supervisors and make his life worthless by taking away his authority, by taking away his power, by recommending that his power be taken away from him. That is part of this equation as well, and that's, by the way, why I want to wait till 8 o'clock before we really start talking about was he fired, did he resign? There's, again, layers here. I'm looking at the clock. We need to stay on time. We're going to get back into this later on. There's a whole world of news to cover as well. All of it feels slightly less important as LSU is in a position right now without a president, an athletic director, or a head football coach. But here's the top of the hour news. Yeah. All over again. 7:05, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. Hour 2 coming your way right now, starting off at 43 degrees in downtown Baton Rouge. Brian here with you, JP producing in the 180 Pros studio. 180 Pros, why 180? Because the only time you need a 360 is in a dunk contest. We got Speaker Phillip DeVillier coming up this hour. We're going to put a kind of another recap on the legislative session that was at the special session as they just push back election dates. I want to talk about that, but I also want to talk about what are the possibilities here following the Supreme Court. Like when the Supreme Court does come back with a ruling, how quickly can we move? How quickly can we pivot and get something done in terms of putting together a new congressional map, putting together new district maps for everything? We'll talk with Phil DeVillier at 7:15. Also this hour, Dr. Tim Allerton from the Pennington Biomedical Research Center going to join us to talk about Obesity Week. Gotta love Obesity Week. Wrapping up with Halloween. How about it? Like we said, a lot of ground to cover, and neither of those two segments are our top story of the day, which is, well, I'll tell you what, let's just dive into top stories and trending.
Number 5.
Scott Woodward is out. LSU's athletic director is parting ways with the university. I don't want to get bogged down in the actual verbiage here. Was he fired? Did he resign? Was he forced out? LSU, oh, by the way, Verge Osbury is going to step in as interim AD. Now, LSU's holding a press conference less than 1 hour from right now. Heads up 8 o'clock. Yeah, we're going to boot ABC News out. We are, come hell or high water, we'll be carrying this press conference for you. So as far as verbiage is concerned, we will wait on LSU to take the lead. We will follow their lead on that front. And then beyond that, what does this mean for the athletic department right now?
Number 4.
Speaking of LSU, when will they have a new president? Well, in speaking with Matt Moscona yesterday, and we didn't get to the soundbite yet, JP, can you cue up 5? In speaking with Matt Moscona yesterday, Governor Landry actually let it out that we should hear something on Tuesday as far as a new president's concerned. We were talking about Governor Landry in our last hour being on AFR. One of the questions he was asked, the question's moot now about is Woodward going to stay on at LSU. The question is moot now, but listen to his answer.
Will Scott Woodward continue to serve as LSU's athletic director with 3.5 years remaining on his contract?
Again, that's questions for the Board of Supervisors. We hopefully will have a new president over at LSU on Tuesday.
On Tuesday. We'll hopefully have a new president on Tuesday. We'll get back into that in a little bit.
Number 3.
A grand jury indicted the former head of the region's groundwater commission and Assistant Superintendent Breck and another man on allegations that they conspired to bypass state purchasing laws. Gary Beard and Oscar Reed Richard were accused of 1 count each of malfeasance in office, monopolizing trade or commerce, and conspiracy. Jason Hewitt is accused of 2 counts of conspiracy, 2 counts of monopolizing trade, and 2 counts of being a principal to malfeasance in office.
Number 2.
41-year-old Gad Black, who was arrested for hitting BRPD Sergeant Caleb Eisworth with his truck back in June, was indicted for first-degree murder yesterday. Black allegedly intentionally drove his truck into the sergeant's motorcycle. Gad Black was arrested later that day at a nearby sporting goods store, booked for attempted first-degree murder, which escalated, of course, when Sergeant Eisworth passed away. Now, according to arrest documents, he had a, quote, deep-rooted hatred for law enforcement personnel.
Number 1.
Well, if you've got YouTube TV, you are currently without WBRZ. WBRZ is reporting YouTube TV users no longer have access to channels owned by Disney, which would include the ABC affiliate WBRZ and the ESPN stations as well. Negotiations just fell through. We'll see where this heads.
Well, it is day 31 of the federal government shutdown. Tomorrow we roll into a new month, and along with it, a new strain on personal budgets as SNAP benefits run out in states that haven't committed to filling the federal gap.
So, who else did Portnoy say was in? You got us, you got Virginia, and there's a handful of states that are picking up the tab in the short term. And there's, I want to know numbers as to I know numbers as to how many people use SNAP, but are there other programs out there that are staying afloat right now that we're not reporting on? Is it SNAP or bust? or like are there other things that? By the way, shout out to Galen over in the Facebook live chat. Can I scroll back far enough to get to this comment? I know there was busy comments this morning. 40 million people rely on the government to eat. Let that sink in. Well, I know there's other problems to tackle right now, but as soon as the government's back up and running, that should probably move to the top of the list, right? And Jack McFarland was on with us earlier in the week, talking about the SNAP benefits. He talked about also footing the tab for another $2.5 million to make sure training programs are open to get people back to work so they can get off of the government dole.
That's right. But yeah, there should be other options, right? Food banks and things of the like.
What I mean, government programs that haven't been tapped out the way SNAP is allegedly tapped out. And there's this whole other discussion as to whether or not the USDA is sitting on $5 billion.
Ooh. Oh, man. Well, in other news, Prince Andrew is no longer a prince. King Charles has removed his title and connection to the royal family due to Andrew's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Yikes.
That's got to be an uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah. So now just simply known as Andrew Windsor.
Andrew Windsor. I'm surprised they let him keep the last name.
Man. Complete disownment.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, that's tough. But yeah, let's see. Yep, Andrew, 65, will no longer be known as Prince or His Royal Highness, among other titles. Buckingham Palace announced, of course, yesterday. So,
what else is going on?
Man, well, Gayle King, who has been the face of CBS News' morning show for more than a decade, is expected to depart as an anchor of the morning program next year. Looks like May of next year, actually.
Okay. And is not retiring, but moving into other roles.
Right.
Which I find curious because if it's going to be like more longer format, deeper dive interviews, that's probably her wheelhouse. But it also talks about where we are as a society right now with de-emphasizing the role of the anchor. The anchor is not like it used to be when it was Dan Rather or Peter Jennings, or if you really want to go back in time, Walter Cronkite. We don't sit on the news all day long waiting for, 6 p.m. or 10 p.m. Okay, now we can report the news. Like Ron Burgundy, I'm here. We can do the news. No, it's we're a 24-hour news cycle now. Content is king. Presentation is barely in the court.
Like that.
Mark that one.
Like
Save
that.
that. That's a little soundbite right there. 712 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Speaker Phillip DeVillier slated to join us next. Before that, though, got to remind you about the folks at NeuroJust. If you or someone you love is battling with anxiety and has been thus far treatment resistant, I cannot recommend NeuroJust enough. If the prescription drugs don't have the desired effect, or if the prescription drugs show side effects, or the prescription drugs are just not taking, whatever the case might be, if the sit-down therapy isn't getting it done. NeuroJust specializes in something that is called transcranial magnetic stimulation. These are magnetic pulses sent into your brain that affect specifically the areas that affect mood. And they've got receipts, y'all. I mean, it's FDA approved. There's no side effects at all. It's non-invasive, but they've got receipts. 80% response rate, 70% plus remission rate, full remission rate. Learn more at neurojust.com, neurojust.com. Calm those C's that are anxiety and depression, neurojust.com. Blue. You need Phillip DeVillier's phone number. 7:15, about to roll over to 7:16 to Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. Quick reminder about Vex European. VexEuropean.com is their website. They're on Benefit Drive over on the backside of Industrialplex if you wanted to go check them out in person. Who needs Vex European? Anybody who drives a European vehicle is the short answer to that question. Mercedes, they'll get your Mercedes tech. BMW tech. Land Rover, Jaguar, Porsche, you name it, they've got the expert technician for you. Look, when you buy a European vehicle, you buy it for performance, and you buy it for longevity. And with Vex European, you get the most out of both. Get yourself a little Vexpertise over at Vex European and VexEuropean.com. All right, we recently saw, and it was, I don't know, this week feels like it's flown by and it's taken forever simultaneously. But we had a special session dealing with election dates for next year. It was a very simple session, got done pretty quickly. Joining us now to recap it and kind of look forward is Speaker Phillip DeVillier. How are you, sir?
Hey, good morning, Brian. Happy Friday. I'm doing well.
Happy Friday. Happy Halloween to you as well. Yeah, I'm glad to have you on.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. How's everything going?
We're going to spend 10 minutes talking about anything but LSU, and I'm so appreciative of these 10 minutes, sir. It's like to not cover the same thing over and over again because there's still so many things that still need to be sorted out. Hey, JP, can you come answer this call? All right. First of all, recap the special session for us, if you could.
I mean, this special session was extremely simple. Look, as you know, I'm sure you've heard, we've spent tens of millions. I know the governor said close to $40 million on lawsuits dealing with the nature. The House alone has spent over $5 million trying to defend maps that have been passed in the past. Mm-hmm. But what we're asking for is just the Supreme Court to lay down a path, so to speak, so we can pass a legal map. It's not that complicated, but historically, if you go back, and I know Chairman Boyer did a phenomenal job of just laying down the history of just lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. We pass a map, the court finds it unconstitutional, they throw it out, we go back in, draw a different map. So it's just been this back and forth for many, many years. So as you well know, we have a case in front of the Supreme Court now. And we are hoping and praying that the Supreme Court lays out a path for us to where we can actually pass a legal map that can get us out of the courts and really start focusing on moving forward. It would be nice to take the dollars that we've been spending on lawyers and putting it on roads and bridges and health care and education and things of that nature and just get out of the court system. So that's all it is. We went in, did the normal process of just moving between the House and the Senate. We passed a couple of bills just moving election dates back. It's close to 30 days is all we pushed it back for, which is about the maximum amount of time we could pass a new map and then give it to the Secretary of State to where she can hold an election on those maps if one were to be passed. So we just went in and passed the bill to extend the election dates out about another 30 days.
Now, everything is contingent upon the Supreme Court here. And worst case scenario, if the Supreme Court doesn't rule in time, we just have the elections that we were going to have. We just have them 30 days later. But let's work under the, we're going to do a little choose your own adventure book. Okay. Working under the hypothetical that the Supreme Court gets back to us within the next month or so, or before the end of the calendar year, with the parameters we would need to set up another map. How quickly can that get done, and what does it take to get that done?
Yeah, so I know you're aware last year in 2024, we went and you could look at the dates that took us to go in and pass a map or maps, I would say, that to hold an election within the time frame. Mm-hmm. So as far as the time going in, we could go in and have another special session and have a new map come out, I would say, within a week or 2 weeks. People say, well, you need to do the road shows, all these other things that we've done in the past. Well, we've done all of those things, road shows and things of that nature. So we have plenty of information to go back in, and provided the Supreme Court does lay out a path moving forward, so we can go in and pass a new map within a couple of weeks for sure.
Okay, so that was exactly my question: is do we pick up where we left off, or do we have to start the entire process of public input back over again?
No, the public certainly is encouraged to come in and have input. I know that they will. Yeah. But again, we've done all of these road shows. we haven't had another census, so to speak, since the last maps that we've passed. So what we just need is a clear path from the Supreme Court to where we know what's the plan that they would like us to take to pass a legal map.
We're talking with Speaker Phillip DeVillier about the recently concluded special session on election dates. Speaker DeVillier, we didn't see a whole lot of opposition to pushing things back. Is this one of those instances where, like, from the outside looking in, it's actually as simple as it was? Just we're just going to punt by a month.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, I would say you have to up in a couple of committees making this out to be bigger than what it actually is.
Right.
But I'll tell you, many people call me. We got in the section, since that was there, was kind of, I would say, somewhat of a surprise. Mm-hmm. But it was as simple as he said it. We just went in, pushed the dates back as far as we could to allow the Supreme Court to give us a clear path to pass legal maps.
Is there a window the Supreme Court can sound off that kind of leaves us in the lurch here where, I mean, the elections are pushed back, but is there a window that the Supreme Court could get back with us where we would not be able to get a new map in?
I would say under the current law that we have, if they go in and rule in December, that would give us enough time. Mm-hmm. But if they were to go in any later than that, it would be more difficult under the current law to pass new maps.
How different would the maps look? Because, I mean, look, here in Baton Rouge, we know that we don't have a capital region, as a state capital, we don't have a capital region congressional district right now. We have to share our district with, it snakes all the way up to Shreveport. Or if you look at a different part of the district, it snakes all the way up to Monroe. Or if you look at a different part of the district, mm-hmm. It goes down to New Orleans. The capital city cannot be its own. What would be the potential of us getting to where we would have, and I know it was the 6th before, but what would be the potential that we would get back to, the traditional quote-unquote 6th?
The potential, I mean, I think if you look at all the different potentials on the rulings, it can be a lot of different things. But, I will say at some point, maybe that would be a possibility to go back to the way it was, where you have Baton Rouge, I guess, more consolidated. You look at, I guess, a lot of the different laws and the directions. I mean, we've had those maps before, right? And the courts came and said we had to redraw new maps, and we tried to do that. It's extremely hard to, I would say, accomplish what the courts are directing us to do, the way our population is dispersed. So,
last one before we get you out of here, and I really appreciate you hopping on board. I know I feel like I'm kind of beating this over the head, but I want to make sure every avenue is explored before we move on. The last one for you is let's walk down the hypothetical path as the Supreme Court rules, and walk down the hypothetical path that we can go back and draw new maps. Would we see the potential of another round of lawsuits off the new maps, or once the Supreme Court rules on this one, it closes the book on the next one as well?
No, I mean, there's always a potential for a lawsuit. I mean, we see that over and over again. But I believe that if we wait on the Supreme Court ruling, we have and they offer a clear path. I mean, we don't know what the ruling is going to be. They offer us a clear path. We would try to, build a map based off of those parameters that they would lay out for us. And look, I'll tell you, Speaker Pro Tem Mike Johnson has been extremely involved and very helpful in all of these cases, going back to the legislative cases, the congressional cases, and he just really just been my right-hand man when it comes to all of these court cases. But no, we are hopeful that they lay us a path so we can draw a map that would be less likely to be challenged.
Very good. He is Speaker Phillip DeVillier. We always appreciate the time, sir. Thank you so much for hopping on board.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. We're at 7:25 at Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP. Okay. We're going to dive back in on the whole on the LSU stuff right now. I didn't want to get too far away from that, but I didn't want the week to conclude without all the other news being covered as well. Give me just a quick second to remind you about the folks over at Mathern's. You know where to find them online. You know where to find them on your phone. The Mathern's Rewards app. I love the Mathern's Rewards app. Earning cash towards more groceries every time I shop. Something as simple as, like, if I'm going over there for lunch, like on Fridays, I tend to hit up that hot wing bar over at the campus location, I hit up the Hot Wing Bar and they scan my app and, hot wings and a bottle of Evermore bottled water, and I'm good to go. And I'm earning cash towards more groceries every time I do that. In fact, I looked it up the other day. I've got a pretty decent stack of money waiting on me to just go ahead and spend when I want to over at Mathern's. And the cash towards more groceries isn't the only great feature that Mathern's offers. There's deals of the week every week. There's coupons every week. And look, there's $1 off here, $1 off there. It does start to add up when you do your shopping online with the Mathern's Rewards app. Whether you are downtown, they've got a location downtown, only full-service grocery store downtown. Whether you are on campus, the Nicholson Gateway Shopping Center, or you're out in the Kenilworth area on Highland just west of Kenilworth, Mathern's has got you covered. Download the app today. It's Mathern's. We are slightly over half an hour until LSU's press conference, which we will be carrying live right here on Talk 107.3 FM. LSU will be holding a press conference. It was announced last night, or it leaked last night, that the university is parting ways with athletic director Scott Woodward. This is the culmination of what's been going on all week long. Back to the head coach being fired on Friday. Our governor, Jeff Landry, was on after further review with Matt Moscona yesterday. One of the things that has been an overriding theme, and this is one that was news yesterday and remains news today, is that nationally speaking, a lot of folks are talking about Governor Jeff Landry butting in on athletics. Like, why is the governor talking about a football coach? Why is the governor talking about who should be the next coach, or why the athletic director shouldn't pick the next coach? In fact, if you would go back to cut 3, please, JP. This is one of the things that Moscona and Jeff Landry, our governor, talked about yesterday.
That's a question that you'd have to ask the Board of Supervisors.
Sorry. I thought that would include the question on the front end. My apologies. Matt asked him, will you be picking who should be picking the next coach?
That's a question that you'd have to ask the Board of Supervisors. In fact, in the press conference, if you listen to it in its entirety, that's exactly what I said. I said, listen, LSU is governed by a Board of Supervisors. There's an athletic committee, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Like, I've got a lot of things to do. We've got a number of boards that govern universities around. I deal with all of them on a pretty regular basis, unfortunately. But I don't micromanage the thing. There's an athletic committee. They'll pick a search committee, and they'll move forward.
Would you serve on that committee?
Absolutely not.
Once again, that was Governor Jeff Landry on after further review with Matt Moscona. Governor Landry is tentatively slated to join us on Monday morning, hoping that can come through as we've got a stack of questions for him. But I do want to take one quick second to follow up on that, though, because this is one area where maybe as a populace we can take a deep breath. Where are we right now? We are without a university president, we are without an athletic director, and we are without a head football coach. And I know all eyes are on that third one, because that's just the nature of who we are. LSU's got a bye week this week, and then next week we're going to see interim coach Frank Wilson lead the Tigers in Tuscaloosa against Alabama. But when you think about where we are right now, what's the time crunch to get done anything we need to get done? And when it comes to it, football coach is third in line. The governor mentioned in a different soundbite, and I'm not going to play it back right now just due to time, but he mentioned in a different soundbite that we're going to hear about a president next Tuesday. Okay, awesome. We'll roll with the president next Tuesday. They're down to 3 finalists. I can't wait to hear about that. The president will then pick who the next AD is, and then the next AD will not be Scott Woodward. Therefore, everything that the governor talked about with it not being Scott Woodward is out. Whoever the next AD is will be in line. And by the way, there's not a head football coach in America that you want to talk to right now who isn't a little busy right now winning football games. So while this appears to be a whole lot, it can be compartmentalized as we move forward. Here's news. Oh, my God. So we're talking about Obesity Week? That's right. Okay. Did you want water? She changed it, JP. You heard that? Last hour, she said that Scott Woodward was fired. And I said, oh, hold on. But I find it interesting that what? Here we go. Where are you from? Like New Orleans, or like Greater New Orleans area? Cool. Where'd you go to school? Oh, nice. I'm from the North Shore, St. Paul's. It's not what it used to be. It's ever since Katrina, like half of Chalmette moved in. Well, yeah. So I can't wait to dig in on this stuff. There's a topic that I can't get enough of. I guess I'm technically obese. I work out like a freak and behave myself eating most of the time. But when I don't, it like negates everything. You can behave 23 hours a day, but that last hour it negates it all. But you're right up on it. So, okay. 736 Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. We're about 24 minutes away from LSU's press conference. That'll be coming up at the top of the hour. Yes, we will be carrying it right here on Talk 107.3 FM as LSU and Athletic Director Scott Woodward parting ways. Right now, though, time to pivot our focus. Earlier this week or was it last week? The Obesity Week conference was held in Atlanta. We've got Dr. Timothy Allerton from the Pennington Biomedical Research Center in with us. We washed all the Atlanta off of him, thank God, and then welcome into the studio after that. How are you, sir?
Doing well. How are you?
Doing very well. Let's start with Obesity Week as a whole. What is it, and when did we start taking notice of it?
So Obesity Week is a conference that collects clinicians, scientists with the focus of the study of obesity, its origins and treatments. So the conference itself is a collection of all these academics and clinicians to study on this problem.
And this is Pennington's wheelhouse. I mean, This is what we do right there on Perkins at Kenilworth. And I always start with this. We're such a world-renowned facility. We've got such a gem right here in our own backyard. And I don't think we realize what we're capable of. Like, I don't think as we drive back and forth up Perkins, I don't think we fully realize what's going on behind those walls. So talk to me a little bit about Pennington's presence at Obesity Week.
So at Obesity Week, Pennington has a massive presence. I think we probably have the largest delegation of scientists that attend the conference. So we're highly represented. And in fact, most of the origins of the obesity conference and the society come from Pennington.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just give me some examples of like where we shine while we're there.
We always shine in the context of the study of obesity and metabolism. We have a very strong presence there, studying some of the aspects of obesity and how people eat, feeding behaviors. We also excel at, and we have a very strong basic science presence where we study the molecular underpinnings of obesity. So really cover the entire gamut of science there.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a really basic question, and I'm going to let you take it wherever you want to go. Why are we so fat?
It's a great question, and it's kind of one of the reasons that I think Pennington was started. There's so many different reasons going on from evolution to society. So, we were, as we evolved, calories were scarce, and as calories have become more plentiful, we have kind of a mismatch of our genetics and the environment. And when those two things collide, we can see that, this is how society has kind of manifested.
What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong to fight it?
In terms of what are we doing wrong, I think all of our previous, I think we're not always to blame. We're kind of dealing with what society has given us. Our genetics are not necessarily matched up with our society and the way our structure is built in terms of, transportation. We're reliant on cars and automobiles and getting us from place to place.
Okay.
We're not as physically active, but calories are just more plentiful. The foods that we eat are more palatable, more highly processed, and there's this mismatch of calorie intake versus calorie expenditure. So what are we doing right? I think we've started to implement some of these lifestyle modifications where getting people to eat more healthily, eat the proper amount of calories, and also the emphasis on physical activity. And the emergence of some of these new pharmaceutical drugs that have really made a dent, I think is the science has really pushed that field. And I think that's one of our big successes. And now it's a matter of how can we combine the lifestyle and the medications together.
We're talking with Dr. Timothy. Is Tim or Timothy?
Tim.
Dr. Tim Allerton from Pennington Biomedical Research Center. Let's start with the pharmaceutical end of this because that's the most popular right now. Everybody's on the GLP-1s.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about the pros and cons of going that route.
Well, the pros are pretty obvious.
Well, yeah.
People are losing weight, and not just losing weight, they're improving their cardiovascular health. So your risk of dying of some type of cardiovascular disease drops dramatically when you're taking these medications. So the pros are obviously they're making a dent in this very hard target of weight loss. The cons, we just don't know yet. We don't know long-term how these drugs are going to work. They can be quite expensive, so staying on the drug long-term is a challenge. So I think we're kind of at, the start of all this. That's why we kind of at Pennington, we still reinforce these lifestyle modifications because those are never going to go away.
How difficult is it to install lifestyle modifications? Because the GLP-1s, that's the reset button. But if you reset and you say have the same habits, if you're doing the same thing over again, you're going to put yourself right back where you were, which is probably even more unhealthy than just being obese in the first place. The yo-yoing back and forth is really not good for you either.
Yeah, that's why a lot of clinicians and scientists are concerned. We're very excited about what these drugs can do, but we have to be cautious and also reinforce the things that we do know that are durable, like lifestyle interventions.
What kind of lifestyle interventions are we looking at here? And can folks manage on their own, or how quickly should people be pulling the trigger on getting help?
I'd say it's never too early to get help in terms of how do you modify your lifestyle. First and foremost, it's eating the proper amount of calories a day. What do you actually need, to burn? Like, what do you need to eat to actually maintain your body?
Are there general parameters there, or is this something that completely varies from person to person?
It does vary from person to person, but there's some general guidelines. And Pennington actually has a great tool on their website that actually helps you calculate what's called your metabolic rate, in other words, the amount of calories that you need per day based on your body weight, your current body weight, your age, your weight, your sex, and things like that.
There's another part of this that I'm trying to think of how to approach it, but not all calories are created equal.
Yeah, so there's some we know from the last 30 years of research that highly processed foods are more palatable, so they're easier to eat. So maybe per calorie they're the same, but if you're eating more of those foods, you're going to be eating more calories in general. So yes, it's hard to say that a piece of fruit is the same as a candy bar. They're not the same. Their nutrition value is completely different. And I think our field has moved in the direction of quality of food is incredibly important, not just the amount of calories.
Right, and because if you're just looking at a specific caloric deficiency, then you could technically get by just by eating Cheetos if you have the right amount of Cheetos, but that's not doing you any good.
Yeah, it's not doing you very much good in the long run. I can't imagine that would set you up for success.
Right. Yeah. Let's go back to the origins a little bit. And you talked about, overall, we are reliant upon transportation. We have our clock where, a lot of us sit at a desk all day long and jam pack 1 hour worth of, or 30 minutes worth of workout into that 30 minutes as opposed to getting up and down throughout the day. How close are we to breaking through to where it's more understood that, a 45-minute workout is great. You don't want to dispel it, but there's 23 hours and 15 minutes of the day where you're not activating your heart rate and all those other things.
Yeah, I think we can spread out. We definitely know from our research at Pennington that you can spread out your physical activity throughout the day, and that is just as effective as kind of combining it all in just one bout of exercise. But it's about building habits in terms of integrating physical activity into your daily life, or into your habits of work, and breaking up sitting time seems to be very effective at establishing a new habit.
Technologically speaking, we see both advances and things that make things so easy for us that it actually hurts. But what are some of the technological advances that you think are helping along the way?
I can't think of many technological advances that have actually helped tremendously. I know a lot of people with the wearables, watches and phones, those seem to make somewhat of a dent in terms of getting people to move more. But those things people can seem to get some fatigue from that. Like, they start to ignore them over a certain period of time. I think some research has indicated that you can have too much of that. So it's really how do you build in opportunities for physical activity and actually combining that with a social aspect of where you have somebody that is good old fashioned, are you reliable? Can you work? Can this person take a walk with you? And having that social interaction seems to be really powerful as well. Maybe exceeding what technology has to offer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Buddy system.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. So I live by my wearable. So I got the Apple Watch, right?
Yeah.
It tells me when to stand up.
Yeah.
And then I find it weird that, if I stand up for over 8 different hours, I'm like, oh, I made a goal here, but it seems like such a simple goal that I don't know that it's getting anything done.
Yeah. Well, I think it's about how durable is the effect. Is this for a week, or is this actually modifying it over the rest of your life? And that's what we're trying to achieve, is something that's durable.
Right. What is Ready to Be Inspired? I'm sorry. I thought that was on. Was that on yours?
Oh, so that
your
yes,
session?
that's the name of the session, the talk that it's actually next week is the Obesity Society meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a talk that I'm giving. It's actually based on some of my research in heart failure. So I study something called exercise intolerance, and exercise intolerance in heart failure is when patients are not able to do things of just normal daily living without being excessively fatigued.
Really?
And we've actually discovered there's certain molecular mechanisms that occur in the heart and the skeletal muscle that we've discovered at Pennington that drive this syndrome.
How far down that road are we? Like that's intriguing to me.
Yeah, so we're getting pretty far into it now, and actually the discovery of these GLP-1 drugs has actually informed a lot of what we're learning in the heart failure and obesity space, of where the muscle is actually highly responsible for people's fatigue in heart failure. So it's not just the heart that's impacted in heart failure, it's the other organs as well. And obesity seems to want to drive this type of heart failure.
What's the way out? I mean, is it just as simple as like?
So there's only a few FDA-approved medications for heart failure with preserved ejection fractions, which is the disease that I study.
Okay.
And what we're learning is that these drugs work through metabolism. They actually don't target the heart specifically, but they work through helping to reprogram metabolism, and that seems to be our earliest evidence that this is a metabolic disease, not a traditional cardiovascular disease alone.
How much do we get lost in the wash here? Because when you start to bring up heart failure, it sets off alarms. How much gets lost in the wash when we're talking about weight, that what the actual ramifications are about the heart, or about heart disease, or about everything else involving just physically keeping us alive?
Yeah, so 1 in 3 people will die of some type of cardiovascular disease. That's much greater than death brought out about cancer. So cardiovascular disease is still the number 1 killer in America. So what is unique about obesity, now that we understand, is that obesity seems to want to drive heart failure. It's not just a bystander on the way that complicates heart failure. So it's actually a part of the disease progression, and that it substantially increases your risk for heart failure.
How difficult is it to change course?
So early detection and early acknowledgement of that, we have a problem here, is really important. It does seem the longer that the disease goes on, it's more difficult to treat. So reversing course, you have to kind of throw everything at it. So this is medical, this is lifestyle intervention, and this is all the things that we know that we can throw at it. We have to get our healthcare team involved very early, and it's never too early to get started on that.
Aside from your presentation, what was your biggest takeaway from Obesity Week? What did you consume?
There's so many. What we come to appreciate. There's so many people that are invested in this problem.
Yeah,
and that's what is really like eye-opening, is that there's so many people that are invested in studying obesity, and many of these people are looking to Pennington for the answer. And that's what we find to be really encouraging and inspiring, is that Pennington seems to be a beacon in all this, where people want to come to do this research, and it's right here in our backyard.
Dr. Tim Allerton. By the way, pbrc.edu is the home base online, pbrc.edu. Dr. Tim Allerton, thank you so much for a couple minutes today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. 7:50 at Talk 107.3 FM. We got Your Money Now coming your way. Don't forget, 10 minutes from right now is when we're counting down to LSU's press conference about the AD. We didn't even get into metabolism there. I can keep going.
Yeah.
It's just, I find it so intriguing. It's constantly paddling upstream.
Yeah.
For me, sleep habits are every bit as bad as the eating habits.
But they're almost like linked.
Yeah.
Sleep and food and just weight or blood pressure too is highly linked.
So I want to do like a myth busting segment at some point of all the things that were, pardon the pun, all the things were fed online.
Yeah.
About I'll scroll through TikTok and it's like, you're not fat, you're just bloated due to cortisol or whatever. We get fed these semi-medical
it's getting worse.
Semi-medical jargon.
It's getting worse.
And I feel like all the products online are kind of like the protein bars in Mean Girls. Sorry to dumb it down like that.
No, it's good.
You remember that movie?
Yeah.
When I forget her name, but she keeps eating the protein bar, she keeps getting fatter.
Yeah.
I was like, I feel like that's what's going on.
If somebody has something to sell you, I think that's where that's where I get concerned. It's like if they have something to sell, then there's a reason to push a narrative. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, thanks.
Very
Thanks
good
for having
stuff.
me. Yeah, I
That
appreciate
segment went by way too fast.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Always.
Glad to do it.
All right. I'll let Joe know. We need to get you back in the rotation.
Yeah, sure. Happy to do myth busting.
Love it. All right. Go ahead and put in Q. Are we? Oh, no, we're still in your money now? Yeah. Okay, so that's. Which switcher is that? Is that 2 or 1?
This is in 2.
Okay, where's 1?
Right here.
Put that Q, please. Turn it up. So this one's 1.
Yep.
And just the way he was communicating with his players.
That's 104.5.
Just top.
That's ABC. I don't know what that is. Effect ABC. Are we out of 2 now? Are we we're in our break?
Yeah.
Okay. Put 2 in Q.
All right.
It's out of your firearm and it gives you a light coat of oil. That way to worry about rust or anything else creeping in while you're on your hunting trip. You guys pretty inundated with folks needing maintenance.
Okay. All right, we're gonna have to run it off the command. Yeah, because I didn't hear anything coming through music-wise. Now that being said, I don't know if they're giving us music yet or not, but like nothing's labeled that says IP1 or IP2 over there. Is there a dial-up?
Maybe IP1 would be the side with the ABC. You put that one in Q?
Yeah, put 1 Q.
All right.
I don't know how to put this back on. There we go. This is why this is a time where we're supposed to let Bo, because I don't think Paul knows this stuff yet. That would be nice. Do you have the YouTube open?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got it.
Do they look like they're counting down to a live stream?
Let me refresh it. No. If you want to, yeah, go. I don't see.
All right. So be ready to have the Skyview, XDS, whatever.
Mm-hmm. I'll go to control overrides here, right here.
And when we after the ID for the top of the hour.
Just go straight into it.
Or
should ABC News play or no?
No, go straight into it. Okay. Top of the hour. 7:55, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. We're counting it down to, and by the way, bear with us here a little bit this morning as we are doing our best to make sure we're going to have all of the latest news for you. LSU is setting up for a press conference this morning about the athletic director position. Scott Woodward is out. Press conference is slated for 4 minutes from right now, and we're going to, in order to carry it, we got to step away from I don't want to get too much inside baseball, but we got to step away from the live board to run a different command. So we will be joining it at heads up 8 o'clock. There just might be a couple seconds of dead air along the way. So just bear with us as we make our way through it this morning. we want to make sure you are as up to date as possible. Make sure we're all as up to date as possible when it comes to what's going on out at LSU. In the meanwhile, though, today is Halloween, which going to be nice and cool, great Halloween weather for this evening, to be sure, for the trick-or-treating. By the way, Greg Fisher with the Louisiana Highway Safety Commission says, and you heard this from our news partners at the Louisiana Radio Network at the bottom of the hour, of course, as it is Halloween, you're going to want to pay extra attention. We're going into neighborhoods during the early evening hours, specifically. Cut 4.
We're going to have more little pedestrians out, and they're no match for any car or truck, much less a large SUV or something like that.
Fisher says when trick-or-treating, it is best for kids to do so in packs. Carry a flashlight, of course, wear the bright clothing. We hear the same things every year. Fisher says that he's got a really good idea that goes along with it.
If you were to string up a little LED light strip on your costume, not only would it look cool, but it would also potentially keep you safer.
DPS Trooper Eddie Thomas says, when the kids are out trick-or-treating, come home with that big old bucket full of candy, you, of course, want to inspect all of it, throw away anything that's suspicious, including anything homemade.
We've had instances across the state where kids have suffered injuries behind ingesting something that was placed in candy.
By law, I hate to even bring this up, but by law, registered sex offenders are not allowed to participate in Halloween. They can't hand out candy to kids. Thomas says parents should do a little homework before trick-or-treating, find out which homes in their neighborhood have sex offenders living there.
We have a link that they can click on, community outreach, and they can have access to the sex offender registry.
Which, by the way, I believe our sheriff's office on their website, EBR Sheriff's Office, has that exact same map, if I'm not mistaken. We're at 7:59, or rolling over to 7:59 at Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Next hour is going to be kind of, moving pieces, as a lot's going to depend on what has to be said here at the in the press conferences coming up. So, JP, where's their countdown right now? We got.
Yeah, it's just live.
But it is live.
It is. They are live.
Okay.
There's just no. Yeah.
All right. So here's what we're going to do. All right. We're going to go ahead and join with the satellite feed, and we'll rely on the internet as a backup, not the other way around. While we do have a quick second, let me remind you about Landmark Bank. LandmarkBankLA.com is where you're going to find them online. Community bank since 1897, and having a community banker is unbelievably important. Whether you're talking about your personal banking or your business, it's small business owners, you already know. You went through COVID. You went through the whole PPP process. You got to see firsthand what it means to have a banker battling for you. So whether you're talking about being a small business owner or growing that small business, Landmark Bank has been here for you as your banker. Check them out at landmarkbankla.com. All right, top of the hour heading your way. We are joining LSU's press conference as soon as it begins. You went ahead and hit the command. Okay, hit exterior on the on the headphones. Yes, please. Okay. And there's nothing coming through yet? There. All right. Roll. No, we can't roll. Is that Ballard still talking? Yeah. Refresh it. Refresh it.
Then they looks like they posted another video, but it's upcoming. We got 60 people, 169 now. People waiting for it to start. But it's already. It's wild. You'll have to show you. No, I'm pretty sure I'm the coach.
.1045's got it later than us. We're way ahead of them. So I think YouTube's working up there. Our Facebook feed can't hear this, can they? Oh.
Michael Cobble, WBRZ TV in Baton Rouge. John, you can take this if you want, or Scott, but representing the board, why did you all deem it necessary to part ways? Verge just talked about 6 championships. We're 4 months removed from a baseball national championship. Those things sound like success to the common person. So why was there this mutual agreement to part?
It was a joint decision. The board and Mr. Woodward had discussions, and it was a joint decision. Thought it was the best for both parties.
Yeah, I guess this is either for Scott or for John. Will LSU buy out the remainder of Scott Woodward's contract?
I'm sorry. What? Can you repeat that? I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry, Matt Moscona from ESPN Baton Rouge. Will LSU or the board buy out the remainder of Scott Woodward's contract?
It's my understanding they're working on that right now, and I'm sure when it's done, it'll be public.
Brett Montel with the Associated Press. I had a similar question. I was wondering, it looks like based on his contract, he's owed at least $5 million or so in base salary, never mind incentives. And I was also wondering what revenue stream would be, are you eyeing to pay that buyout?
Revenue stream, as I've said before, is generated from the athletic department. It's self-generated funds and/or private donations. That's where it comes from. Does not come from state dollars that are allocated towards other things like education. So it'll come from self-generated athletic funds and/or private donations.
Good morning, Kyra Naveau with WBO in New Orleans. My question to Mr. Osbury. For you, obviously you're the interim right now, but are you seeking to fulfill this position full time?
At this time, that's not a concern right now. Our concern is trying to get the best football coach we have here and making sure this department is stable. That's my job. I'm not looking to do anything future from that, but right now it's just stabilizing the department, making sure the coaches and the executive team is okay with everything they do and they're getting our support, and hiring a football coach.
Verge. Question about the contracts. Jeff Landry's made it very clear that he would like to see more of an incentive-based contract to avoid that large buyout that Brian Kelly has been owed. How do you plan to do that with this within this search, and do you worry that that will deter any candidates?
I've spoken to the board members on side of me right here and other board members, and our job, I was told to get the best football coach there is, and don't worry about that at all. So my thing is, we're going to go out there together as a team, and we get the best contract, get the best coach we have, and whatever it takes to get that person here, we will do.
Verge, right up the middle here. Just again, timeline for that, and the committee that you said you assembled, 5 people. Do you feel like that's the right size? Should there be more people involved, do you think?
We're looking at one more person. The process has started. Process has started since we made the decision Sunday. And there's no really timeline. We'll be looking at a lot of people. I have the exact list, but we know what we want here. We know what we expect here. And we're going to have the best coach here at Tiger Stadium.
For Scott or John, is there a timeline for naming a full-time athletic director? And Verge, if you want to follow up, you've been a candidate in the past. What would change this time if you weren't a candidate this go around?
I'll speak to it, and John can add if he wants. There is not a timeline set for that. The first thing, like Verge said, the full concentration is to find a coach, find the best coach, period. That process has already started, as Verge said, with the team, the athletic department. So truly is not something we're even going to address until we get that done.
Scott, let's stay with you if you don't mind. Does the coaching candidate, athletic director, whatever, do these jobs have to have Louisiana ties to them? And if so, why do you feel that way?
Verge's license is to go find the best coach. I think people in Louisiana love to have Louisiana people, and I'm no different. I was born here, and God willing, I'll die here. But that is not a litmus per se. But if Verge can go find one that has Louisiana ties, then awesome. But that is not a litmus for them.
Hey there, Brett Martell again with AP. I wanted to give you the opportunity because I think a lot of the LSU fan base and people following this are somewhat confused about the extent to which performance-based considerations led to Scott's departure. Is there anything specific that you'd want to address in that regard?
I'm not sure I understand the question, but if the performance of Scott, and I mean, like John said, it was a mutual agreement after conversations, and with all the things that come into that, energy and family and what you're doing, and nothing's off the table of why Scott and LSU had a mutual agreement that after those conversations that they mutually agreed that it was a good idea. Scott is a great human being. Scott is a good Baton Rouge LSU Tiger. It had nothing to do with any of that. It had everything to do with the path of both conversations, and they mutually agreed that it was time. It wasn't an LSU thing. It wasn't a Scott thing. So.
The board will be hiring a new president on Tuesday. Can you speak to the extent he will be involved in the search for either the head coach or the permanent athletic director?
Was that to me? What'd you say?
Morning, Scott. Yes,
Hey.
any of y'all can answer.
Hey, Pfeiffer.
Y'all will be hiring a new president on Tuesday. To what extent will he be involved in the search for the head coach or the permanent athletic director?
The new president will be announced on Tuesday, and he or she or he, we have the three candidates, we're not slowing down for that. Verge is going to move forward and knows what he needs to do. But depending on how that works out and when the new president starts, but the new president will absolutely have input and hopefully hit the ground running. But depending on what the choice is, we've got to also respect that they've got to unwind some stuff as well.
We have time for a few more questions for Verge. If you have a question for Verge, we have a few more minutes. Okay. I'm sorry, this one's for John. John, just given the governor's speaking points about the contract and the legalese of the contract for Brian going forward, is it a point of emphasis to remove LSU as the liable party for these contracts? It would be a departure from the way they've been written in the past. Is that something that kind of you guys have marching orders to make sure is enacted in these next deals?
Well, let me make it clear. The governor had a right to be concerned, and we're working towards solutions. Everything's on the table. But let me make it clear. The state has never, and the taxpayers have never paid for a coach and never will. So.
Matt Venezia, WAFB. Just given the timing of Scott's departure with the firing of Brian Kelly, for new candidates being considered for the coaching position, could the lapse in not having a president named just yet, now Verge being in the spot you're in now, could that deter candidates away? And is that why the timing of all this has happened, to keep candidates considering LSU as a destination?
Could you ask the question to me? Yeah. We're LSU. My phone is still ringing. Before, this has happened, a lot of people, candidates, are still want to come to LSU. It's one of the best jobs in the country. It is the best job in the country at this time, and we're going to find the right person. And I don't see any problems getting the right person to be the head coach at LSU.
Thank you, guys. Congratulations, buddy.
Did you run the live feed? LSU XDS. Rolling over to 819 to Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. We got some making up to do on the spot front, on the commercial front, and the traffic front, as this is still a morning show. We are still keeping you up to speed on traffic, but we felt it was important to run that in its entirety. Oh, a lot to unpack from it, though, right? We're going to get to as much of it as we possibly can on the back end. I do believe we still have Foodie Friday slated for today, although at this point, I'm like, with the press conference to break down, it's just so much to do. Okay, so a couple of the high points from that. Confirmed, new president Tuesday. We had that for you earlier in the morning. That was confirmed through that press conference. New president Tuesday. Verge Osbury has always been impressive, and this is my personal editorial, my personal takeaway. Dude sounds in control. So we're in a good spot with the interim AD post. As new president rolls in, new AD would logically be the next step before a new coach. But as of that press conference, Verge does sound very much in control. I did hear a couple of other quick takeaways within there. They repeated numerous times. It was mutual between Woodward and the board. It was mutual, and I think they said it was mutual as well. And then on top of that, you heard one of the questions towards the end. Taxpayers have never paid for a buyout before. So we can go back to the governor's comments about the technicality or the technical verbiage within the contract, but it was confirmed right there. Taxpayers have never paid for a buyout before, so I don't expect us to start picking up the tab on this one. That being said, though, that was just a few of the minor footnotes of the overall press conference. Let's get you caught up. We'll take our break. We'll check in with Bloomberg. We'll check in with traffic. We'll have our weather, and then we'll kind of formally start hour 3 in just a little bit. Put me back in program, whatever, for my headphones. Yeah. Or was that as Willy Wonka? Verge Osbury. We are the dreamer of dreams. We are the music makers. You let me know what's in there, and I can run with it based off of that. If we don't have Foodie Friday, we'll get to this day in history before we're done. Do I? Yep. End of the show if we can. Yeah. Bum, 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 bum. 824, Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. So much to unpack from that last 20 minutes or so. Thank you for sticking with us. I know it wasn't the smoothest of transitions, but sometimes being live and up to the second is more important than being, all smooth about it. So, if you're watching on Facebook Live, our apologies on the front end of that. We did not have audio for you on Facebook Live for a hot minute, but we did end up getting that corrected before it was all said and done. So we're going to be unpacking what was just said for the next little while. All right, this is Mornings with Brian Haldane. He's JP. I'm Brian, broadcasting from the 180 Pro Studios. Is it time for your IT to hit a 180? Visit 180pros.com, 180pros.com. Normally, we would have this day in history for you to start off our third hour. We're going to push that back to the end of the show. Is the next 35 minutes or so are just going to be a work in progress to see what we can unpack so quickly. I want to start off with, and I know I shouldn't be diving down an editorial path this quickly, but Virg Osbury as interim AD, that was the first takeaway. And he ran with the football, pun very much intended. He ran with it there. And I got to tell you, like, the takeaway there to hear from him as an interim, even an interim having the interim tag on there, hearing Virg speak, I walked away with quite a bit. Here was Virg Osbury talking about who we are and where we should be.
We are, you'll say this all the time, we're the movie makers, we're the financiers, the administrators, the coaches, you're the producers. The athletes, which is most important, they're the actors. That's who are important here to us. We have to do everything to make sure that the student athletes get what they need, the coaches get what they need. Our job is support.
He goes on from there, and like I said, we're grabbing this like as close to real time as possible, so bear with us. But he went on from there to talk about what's the title of it?
The committee.
Yeah. Okay. No. We'll get to that in a second. He goes on from there to talk about LSU should be in the playoff every year. And that sounded hyperbolic when he said it, but I kept thinking about that as he kept moving forward. And no, that's not out of the realm. We have 12 teams make the playoff in football every year. And it's not unheard of to think that LSU should be in that top 12. Not saying they should win it every year, but be in that top 12. And if the playoff expands to 16, definitely being in there every year with that level of expansion. Basically saying we should be a top 25 team, preferably the top half of the top 25, was what Virg had to say. And, yeah, that is a lofty expectation. And, no, you're not going to meet expectation every single year. But if that's where the bar is, then you're going to effort to hurdle it, and all things will follow along with that. Let's talk about the committee. Was this about the committee to find the new full-time AD or a new full-time coach?
I don't really know.
Again, working in real time. I appreciate y'all bearing with us. Let's just go ahead and hear from Virg. Cut to.
I formed a committee. On that committee will be Scott Ballard, chairman of the board, John Carmouche, chairman of athletics, Ben Bordelon. As you know, Ben Bordelon is a former football player here. Bollinger Shipping, CEO. E.J. Kuiper. E.J. Kuiper is CEO of Lady of the Lake. He will be on the committee. And there'll be another, and myself, and there'll be another member of the committee that we are talking to right now at this time. Those are the people that are going to be responsible for helping us find the next great football coach at LSU.
All right. I want to go back to, do you still have the Landry cuts open?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
All right. So you heard Verge Osbury talk about the committee being formed to find the next coach. If we could go back, Jeff Landry was on with Matt Moscona yesterday afternoon, and Matt asked him point blank, like, who should be in charge of finding the next coach? I believe it was cut 3, JP.
Yep, that's it.
That's a question that you'd have to ask the Board of Supervisors. In fact, in the press conference, if you listen to it in its entirety, that's exactly what I said. I said, listen, LSU is governed by a Board of Supervisors. There's an athletic committee, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Like, I've got a lot of things to do. We've got a number of boards that govern universities around. I deal with all of them on a pretty regular basis, unfortunately. But I don't micromanage the thing. There's an athletic committee. They'll pick a search committee, and they'll move forward.
Would you serve on that committee?
Absolutely not.
And now fast forward to where we were just a few moments ago when Verge laid out who was going to be on that committee. So great takeaway right there from the press conference. I tell you what, I'm keeping one eye on the clock here. We're going to end up missing news at the bottom of the hour. We have spots to make up because we went long form for so long. So I'll tell you what, let's take a quick break right here, get our feet back underneath us a little bit further. We've got a lot more to pick up and run with from the press conference that LSU just had, talking about Verge Osbury as your interim AD, and where are we headed next with the athletic department. We'll pick that up right after this.
All right. The third cut was Governor in on the Brian Kelly fire.
Cade, awesome edit, knocking Oxner out of there. .832 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Still playing catch up when it comes to when it comes to the clock, the show itself. We got set back pretty far. Not to worry, we will be caught up by the end of this, but we'll be taking just infrequent breaks or not the usual breaks. So we're unpacking the press conference that we just heard. John Carmouche, Scott Ballard, Verge Osbury talking about the future of the athletics program at LSU. Verge stepping in as interim AD as LSU and Scott Woodward parted ways. Had boy, they couldn't find more ways to say that it was mutual. I mean, that was one of my bigger takeaways. I want to say the first 2 or 3 questions were, oh, come on, who broke up with who, right? And another part of this was, with all the talk about Scott Woodward and the contract, the bad contract, the contract that left us on the hook, one of the questions was the governor involved in the parting of ways between Scott Woodward and LSU's athletic department?
The governor was not involved. The governor is worried about the state of Louisiana. His concern had to do with the state contract. LSU Board of Supervisors and Mr. Woodward decided jointly to part ways.
Decided jointly. It's mutual. So and they went about that repeatedly, saying it was mutual. We're going to get to some more of this in just a little second, in just a quick second. Do want to reiterate, though, that they mentioned numerous times about finding the best head coach for LSU football. I again, and this is just my takeaway from it, but with the new president coming Tuesday and Virgin's spot as interim AD, I don't think patience is not called for here. A little bit of patience, a little bit of grace, that those who are at the helm right now are just taking the helm. So I know as quickly as we all want a new head football coach announced, I mean, like anybody who's worth their salt is coaching other teams to victorious programs right now. So we will see that play out as it plays out. Right now, though, I tell you what, let's go back to the cuts here. Was it Moscona? I think it was Moscona. I was bouncing back and forth between two studios trying to get this set. But it was Matt Moscona, I believe, from 104.5 ESPN, after further review, who asked, is Scott Woodward's contract going to be bought out?
It's my understanding they're working on that right now, and I'm sure when it's done, it'll be public.
Oh, the way it was reported last night, and I know a lot has changed from last night to today, but the way Yahoo Sports was reporting it, and that's the one I'm going to lean on here, because that's Ross. That's Ross Dellinger. The way, and I'm scrolling through looking for the dadgum cut. Hang on a second, y'all. Bear with me. No, I don't see the tweet anymore. The way it was reported last night, there was some level of negotiation already had as to whether or not Woodward's contract was going to be covered. Like, you can go ahead and leave. We got you for the duration here. Woodward was under contract for another 3.5 years after this. So, and by the way, we are going to get to what he had to say, what Woodward had to say in a letter to Tiger Nation in just a little while. Going back to the cuts very quickly, if you're buying out Scott Woodward's contract, what was the revenue stream to get that done? Cut 5.
To pay that buyout.
Revenue stream, as I've said before, is generated from the athletic department. It's self-generated funds and or private donations. That's where it comes from. Does not come from state dollars that are allocated towards other things like education. So it'll come from self-generated athletic funds and or private donations.
Which is what most, if not all, the buyouts to date have come from. It's just that's the way we've always seen it. That's why when everyone reacted to Jeff Landry initially, and Landry had different information, having read the contract, poured over the contract, when everyone reacted initially saying, no, it's always, somebody always picks up the tab for a buyout. Always. What the governor was looking at was the possibility, not just a hypothetical, but the possibility that based off the language of the contract, if no one steps forward, the state would be left holding the bag. We just never seen that play out in real life that way. Keeping with it real quick, and we're taking another break here to get caught up in just a minute. One more real quick, and that goes back to Verge Osbury as the interim athletic director. Would he be interested in the job full time?
At this time, that's not a concern right now. Our concern is trying to get the best football coach we have here and making sure this department is stable. That's my job. I'm not looking to do anything future from that, but right now it's just stabilizing the department, making sure the coaches and the executive team is okay with everything they do and they're getting our support, and hiring a football coach.
As a Tiger fan, as an alum, as just a Baton Rougean, this could be a very scary time right now. There's a lot of limbo going on right now. There's a lot of uncertainty right now. But Verge's voice is going to be one of steadiness. Interim or not, going to be one of steadiness as we move forward. And, hey, starting next Tuesday, there will be a new president, and we will have a direction from there. So I'll tell you what, let's take another break real quick. That break should get us caught up. I believe this break will include our news partners at Louisiana Radio Network. It will include traffic. It will include our weather forecast as well, because let's not forget, it is still Halloween. The kids will still be trick-or-treating. So let's get caught up to speed right now on Talk 107.3 FM. Thank you, Kim. Or Kimberly. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's not always going to be pretty, but we'll get the job done. All right. Galen says, "Dang, I had to miss the LSU press conference. Did I miss anything? Not really. There was you missed confirmation of everything we speculated about. We didn't miss this morning. Everything that we talked about, that I talked about, Verge Osbury is the interim, going to be a steady hand. We will have a new president next Tuesday. There was a lot of talk about finding the best head coach out there. Honestly, if I'm being completely honest, I want to blast the shit out of that. That's always the effort. It's never not the effort to go out and find the best coach out there. No athletic director in the history of ever has said, we're going to find a guy. Meh. Anyway, we can wait on that, though, because there's too much that's pressing to worry about my dumb opinions on shit. Good morning, Mom. We got any more yet? Yeah. 844 Talk 107.3 FM, WBRP, Mornings with Brian Haldane, rolling right along. Got to remind you very quickly about flybtr.com. The Baton Rouge Metro Airport is here for you with all the turnover within the athletic department. There's been at least we're going to see next week, a little bit of reinvigoration on the field. And if you want to be there, you can. Baton Rouge Metro Airport's got a direct flight to Birmingham to see LSU take on the Alabama Crimson Tide next Saturday. I believe flight rolls out on Friday, comes back home on Sunday. And, oh, by the way, if you're looking ahead to the end of the season, they're doing that for the Oklahoma game as well. And, oh, by the way, daily, they've got a direct flight to our nation's capital, BTR to Reagan National. It's available at flybtr.com. A couple of items just to kind of clean up a little bit. I'm getting smashed with texts and messages and whatnot. Keith says they said buyout comes from athletic funds, not state dollars. That directly against what Landry said. Not exactly. Yes and no. What they were talking about there, first of all, was Scott Woodward's contract would be bought out with athletic dollars or donations or TAF dollars or whatever. They were talking about Woodward's contract, not Kelly's. But also they were talking about what will happen, not what could happen, not what the possibilities based off the language of the contract were about. Jeff Landry's problem was always, or from the first time he mentioned it, that the way the language is written in the contract, and until we've all read the contracts, I don't know that we can, dispute them, but the way the language is written, if nobody steps up to pay this off, then the state is left holding the bag. Talking about Kelly's contract, right? Now, that being said, and hopefully we'll be able to get to the soundbite before it's all said and done for the show, but there was a question asked about, has the state ever actually had to pick up the tab? Taxpayers have not, in fact, ever had to step in for picking up the tab for a buyout. In the meanwhile, let's get back to a little bit of the audio here. I tell you what, cut 8 is what I'm looking for here. So we're getting a new president on Tuesday. Do we have a timeline set to get a new AD?
There is not a timeline set for that. The first thing, like Verge said, the full concentration is to find a coach, find the best coach, period. That process has already started, as Verge said, with the team, the athletic department. So truly is not something we're even going to address until we get that done.
See, that's going to be scrutinized in the future as well. And that I believe that was Scott Ballard on that particular comment right there, is that why do it out of order? Like, first and foremost, everybody you would want to talk to as a coach is still coaching. So why not get an AD in place so that the AD can pick who he wants his coach to be, rather than do it the other way around? If you get a coach first, then an AD, doesn't the AD come back and say, well, I didn't have my guy? Anywho, keeping back with it, more from the press conference that just was. One of the things that is probably going to be an overriding theme, and whether you're looking for a new coach, a new president, a new AD, no matter who you're looking for, Louisiana ties always come into play, because we are a unique culture here. Louisiana loves Louisiana, or at least we should. So is that going to play a role in the next big hires? Cut 9.
Verge's license is to go find the best coach. I think people in Louisiana love to have Louisiana people, and I'm no different. I was born here, and God willing, I'll die here. But that is not a litmus, per se. But if Verge can go find one that has Louisiana ties, then awesome. But that is not a litmus for them.
I think the question was just a sneaky way to ask about Calvin Shepard, but it's bigger fish to fry right now. Okay, let's stick with it. I tell you what, we're going to I am watching the clock. I know 8:50. We got a break again. I want to pivot over and very quickly thank Cade Wassan for his work chopping this whole thing up. That was unbelievable turnaround. So big shout out to the program director real quick. While we're counting down to Your Money Now, and we're going to take our last break of the show with Your Money Now. Before we get back to the sound bites, which we will get back to after the break, Scott Woodward did put out a statement about his departure, and it read, Dear Tiger Nation, it's with a heavy heart, but also with my typical optimism that today will be my last day serving as your director of athletics. I grew up a few miles from campus, attended Catholic high school, enrolled at the university that would change my life in 1981. My 4 years as an LSU student were among the greatest of my life. My career took me into government and public relations before the opportunity to return to my alma mater in 2000 to lead external affairs for the university. Being back on campus each day and every day was a true honor. My journey would take me to Seattle and to College Station before finally returning home in 2019 to LSU and to Baton Rouge. Others can recap or opine on my tenure and on my decisions over the last 6 years as director of athletics, but I will not. Rather, I will focus on the absolute joy that LSU athletics brings to our state's residents and to the Baton Rouge community. I will cherish the incredible relationships that I've built with the university community and beyond our campus borders, and I will fondly remember the national and SEC championships for the joy that they brought to our student athletes, coaches, staff, campus community, and our incredible fans. Our university will always hold a special place in my heart, and I will never be too far from LSU. Nanette, Michael, Josh, and I wish the Tigers nothing but the best. Go Tigers. Scott. We'll pick up after this. Here's your money now. Come on back to me. Come on back to me. All right, here's what we're going to do. This was maybe a little bit messier than we thought. The Your Money Now, the satellite that comes from, did we jump off of there to go hit LSU? All right, so skip it. We'll hit the break. We'll come back. We'll close it out next on Talk 107.3. Oh. Okay, so 11 and 12 are, and is there a 13? So we didn't get a cut on the, no one's ever bought out the state's ever been on a tab. All right, let me see if I can find that. That's the only one I want more than anything else. What's your favorite Halloween candy? 499-1073. If only it were that simple, JP. If
I know,
only
right?
we were doing a Halloween show today.
I know.
We're dealing with things that are much scarier, though. As we're breaking down the press conference that just was.
I know, right?
All right. We'll keep it dialed in
Yeah.
over here. All right. We're breaking down the press conference that just was as LSU addressing the parting of ways with athletic director Scott Woodward. I want to pick through this because we've only got a couple minutes left. I want to make sure we get to the ones. Go back to the folder. I didn't put a number on this. I just said never paid. You see it in the folder? Yep. Okay. We might end up playing this one twice if Cade labeled it differently than me. One of the questions was about the liability for the buyout. The liability for the buyout's been a big thing. That's apparently what got the governor started on this in the first place. And I believe it was John Carmouche addressed it directly.
Well, let me make it clear. The governor had a right to be concerned, and we're working towards solutions. Everything's on the table. But let me make it clear. The state has never, and the taxpayers have never paid for a coach and never will. So,
because if you don't have the money up front, you don't pull the trigger. If you don't have the checks lined up, you don't fire the coach at that point. That's part of the whole thing is like when these things get rolling. Look, I know the internet is the worst, right? And I know the message boards are terrible. And they'll start talking about so-and-so decided to cut this check. You had this booster doing this. Oh, did you hear that the former player who used to be blah, blah, blah. Like, and everybody's got their rumor and everybody thinks they know their rumor and whatnot. But beneath all the rumor is, a broken clock is right twice a day. Well, somebody's rumor is going to be right. And they line those dollars up ahead of time to be absolutely sure. We will have, like I said, new president on Tuesday. Cut 10 if you would. What's the new president's role in finding a new head coach?
The new president will be announced on Tuesday, and he or she or he, we have the three candidates, we're not slowing down for that. Verge is going to move forward and knows what he needs to do. But depending on how that works out and when the new president starts, but the new president will absolutely have input and hopefully hit the ground running. But depending on what the choice is, we've got to also respect that they've got to unwind some stuff as well.
One more, and I know I'm squeezing this in under the wire here, but I think I wouldn't mind as an alum, as a fan, I wouldn't mind ending on a positive note. The question was, is all the turmoil going to cause a problem for the coaching search? And the short answer, cut 12, the short answer is we're still LSU, dang it.
Could you ask the question to me? Yeah. We're LSU. My phone is still ringing before, this happened. A lot of people, candidates still want to come to LSU. It's one of the best jobs in the country. It is the best job in the country at this time. And we're going to find the right person, and I don't see any problems getting the right person to be the head coach at LSU.
And that's what we're going to call it for today, y'all. Moon Griffon, I'm sure we'll have a lot on this coming up as we get the Moon Griffon show coming your way from 9 to 11. I'll be back at it on Monday with probably more to unpack as the weekend unfolds. Just one more friendly reminder. Please be safe out there, y'all. Halloween tonight. Taking the kids trick-or-treating. The air is going to be crisp. The weather's going to be wonderful. Let's just have a great and restful weekend. We'll reconvene Monday. Thank you all so much for playing along. All right, Facebook, I'm getting the bleep out of here. I know 9 a.m. is too early to drink, so maybe I'll just go smoke crack instead. Maybe I'll smoke crack instead. We'll see you Monday.